Ladies and gentlemen, once more, a round of applause for program moderator, Mr. Cyrus Rogers.
Good morning, everybody. I trust you had a great evening yesterday. I see some of us are blurry-eyed, which can only mean we had some great networking. How are we all on day two? Oh, it's very, very day two then. Fine. I hope we're all well. Let's start today's proceedings the way we intend on finishing them, on the right foot. So that starts with cell phones. Silent, please. Yesterday, I heard a couple of cell phones ringing in the afternoon session. I was very generous. No tackling, no fining, none of those things. But today, I'm feeling feisty. So I won't. Please make sure your phones are on silent. Obviously, the reason we want that is because we want you to interact with us. We need you to send questions throughout the day, not just when we prompt them, and especially to register on the system before we have to do the voting. It was very weird to get to like sort of 3 o'clock yesterday and people were like, how do I do a QR code? So let's try and get all of that done now. So register on the system using the QR code, and then we'll get you on there if you haven't done that. Obviously, we know where the exits are, but I do have to tell you, they're right behind you through the doors marked, wait for it, exit. Those are the ones that you need to use. The exhibition venue. Please make sure if you haven't taken a turn around the exhibition venue, do so, please. There's a lot to see there, a lot of people interact with, and we'll also be having some of our tea and lunch breaks there too. I mentioned Q&A. I mentioned exhibition. Now for us to mention our sponsors. I'd like to firstly acknowledge the Gauteng Management Agency, as well as SAFLOG as our sponsors. And to kick off proceedings, we're actually going to hand over to, I called him the dapper Dan man, or the person who was dressed the snazziest yesterday, Mr. Tshepo Khobe. He'll be speaking to you this morning, so please welcome him to the stage.
Good morning. Out of all the things that I also do, can I have the presentation up? I also run an online book review show. And I had the privilege of interviewing Victor Khomeswan. And Victor wrote a book called Africa Bounces Back. And I asked him a simple question. I said, Victor, out of all the things that you could write about, you write about Africa. Why is it so that you champion Africa so much? He said something profound. He says, it's all I have. Some of you might have relatives away from Africa, but for me, this is it. It is the continent I have. Now, this reminds me of the conversation we were having with Kevin yesterday, that you see this railway line, it's all we have. If we do not fix it, there isn't any other place you're going to work. And most of you are 3 months away from being kicked out of your homes. So let's be careful with it. But that's not why I'm here. Today, I don't want to speak about hurtful things about you being kicked out of your house. But today I'm going to tell you a bit about a place that needs no introduction, the Gauteng. First and foremost, let's apologize to the man who missed his train, who's missed his plane, because the operator didn't run the trains very well on Sunday, so he didn't make it to the conference yesterday. So, sir, from the Chief Operating Officer of the Gauteng, we apologize. You can come and collect a free Gauteng card a little bit later. See, we look after our commuters. Now, talking about the Gauteng, what is the Gauteng? And it needs no introduction, but we still have to tell the story about it. So it's about 82 kilometers of rail track, high-speed network, higher speed network. It's not a high-speed network, it's a higher speed network. We've got 96 cars or 24 EMUs, electrical multiple unit. You know, we like talking in 3-letter acronyms and 4-letter acronyms. So we've got 10 stations, we've got 1 bus depot and 1 rail car depot. We've got 125 buses and 22 minibuses. and stuff that is, roughly around 1,500 if all of them come to work, kind of work. So, some of them work in mysterious ways. They don't work from home or work from the job. They work somewhere in between in mysterious ways. So overall, what has been our performance in the last 13 years? We've carried 131 million passengers on the network. Now, that is a staggering amount of people to carry up and down. And then on the buses, we've carried 40 million passengers. And on the midi buses, which is sort of our new star, that probably started about 2 years back or 3 years back, we've carried already 1 million people or close to 2 million people on there. Now, this is the amazing bit. This is the bit I was talking about. You see, I was even under-exaggerating. These guys do very well. So as you can see, they're already operating the norm before they get penalties. That's what keeps them happy, incentives. 98% is what they are required to make their trains available for. And they operated 99.2. And that's on average. Most days they operated 100% availability. And then in terms of what do they call it? The punctuality, I was very nice there. I gave them 94% as the norm, but they are exceeding it at 99.38. And then the feeder and distribution service similarly. And the feeder and distribution service, it's an important issue to discuss because it runs in open traffic. Our buses and our midi buses run in open traffic, but they make sure that every departure or every train is aligned to a departure of a bus and everything else. And they've done very well on that score. Now, this is an important issue. We also do what our customer surveys and check on the issues like safety, security, punctuality, cleanliness, and accessibility, and everything else. And you can see, in general, our scores have always remained above the 90% mark. And this is done independently. It's not done by us. We don't go around threatening people or offering them free cards for them to vote for us. This is done openly, as what do they call it, as it is. And we've done very well on these scores. Yes, the challenge with being, somebody said we're a victim of our own success. The challenge with being the best at what you do is that everybody expects it every day, every time. And that's the challenge with it, because let me tell you, that 1% or that 0.085% that we don't do well, man, Twitter fires up when we don't do well. Everybody gets unhappy. It's like almost like I've been the worst child in the family ever. I get beaten up like that. But that is because our customers have gotten used to what do they call it, to what we do. Now, I know everybody is thinking, why is he talking about the old Gauteng? Where's the new one? Well, we've started the process of the new Gauteng, and we've already done the route determination. So this is sort of the process as you do a PPP. You do the feasibility study, which we've completed. You do your procurement. We're not yet at the procurement, but parallel to the procurement, we do what we call route determination. And as part of the route determination, you might have seen me online being beaten up by all sorts of people all over the place about the fact that they don't want the Gauteng in their backyard. It's okay. It feels like 2005. But I'll survive. I've survived 2005 and I'll survive this one too. But we will make sure that we consult adequately, because that's what becomes important, is to be able to listen to the communities through which we run. So that process has already started running. And overall, this is the network. So I guarantee you, it doesn't run anywhere near your house, because that's what everybody always asks me. So the first phase is that green line there. The bit that goes down from Sandton to Necropac, we're doing a second tunnel through to Sandton 2, which is the second station in Sandton, and then ultimately to run back Cosmo and then to Little Falls, and then go to Jabulani through Rodeport. And that's what we refer to as the Soweto line. So that's the first project, and that's the bit that I am going around engaging communities on. But there is a bigger plan than this, and that bigger plan overall looks like this. I've intentionally made it very small so that you cannot see where really it runs. But this is what we refer to as the Gauteng super network. If you look through it, I'm gonna get off the stage. Who looks like is interesting? Okay, let's walk the side. Let me be nice to Lillian. So this area here, so these purple dots that you see all over the place here are the special economic zones in Gauteng. Now, we've gone back to our ethos of the Gautrain being an economic development project rather than it being a transport project. It's a transport and it's mobility that powers an economy. And when you look at these purple dots, and I haven't put down all of them. So here is Lanseria, that's Roslyn up at the top. This is that Tambo Springs area in the far east. This is the Vaal River city complex. This is the Western Precinct SEZ. And then in the middle here, you have the Erythropolis. And then a little bit further on, there's a few more areas that, and as you can see, this is mobility that powers an economy. The intent is for us to make sure that these SEZ, so the Integrated Transport Master Plan says we will not build outside of the central urban core. And the central urban core is the areas where the freeway runs and where currently we are populated. And the rest of Gauteng will remain green as it is. And then we will make sure that we are able to move knowledge workers from the central urban core, which is the area where, so the blue bits is the existing line. So here, over here and there, that's Hatfield and that's Park down here. And then that's the airport over there. Now, we have committed ourselves to remain as green as possible and keep up with the green belt in Gauteng as a whole. So we will not build outside of the urban core. And you can see our, what do they call it? Our intent is quite ambitious. We're going from 82 to 570 kilometers of track. But here's what is important to this. It is a complementary network to the PRASA one. We are not duplicating that. As you can see, overall, we're building lines in areas where there's no lines. And then it crosses at 90 degrees in most areas with, what do they call it, with the PRASA network. And it's a complementary network. The challenge with being the only network that functions is that everybody wants us to do everything. And it is not necessary for us to do everything. It is a mix, the transport mix has to function. Us, PRASA, the buses, and everybody else on the BRTs has to function. If the transport mix does not function, then you have a total collapse and chaos that we have at the current moment with the amount of congestion that we have all over the place. But why is this network built like this? It is actually built like this to enable this. Now, this is an important chart. The reason why this is an important chart is that not everything on this particular map is actually heavy rail. It is appropriate mode of rail that will be used to be able to enable some of the loops here. So some of the loops in this area here, for instance, if you look at this far end corner here, loops like this can be done with a tram. The line that goes to Lanseria can be done with light rail. And we ourselves are preparing ourselves to be able to be a multi-rail and multi-mode transport company more than just run with, what do they call it, with heavy rail everywhere. Now, obviously, there's certain parts of the network, and you'll see as I end the presentation, that those certain parts of the network itself, and you can see, so the appeal I was making yesterday, this graph makes it clear. Commuter metro is still the best way of moving the masses. It is not you going with rapid rail just like that. It is still commuter rail. It is still only through us getting PRASA right that you will power the economy. And that does not change. It is higher speed rail networks have their space. As you can see there, rapid rail, which is the green block over there, which is this green block over here. High speed has its role. But look at what we're doing at the current moment with the collapse of PRASA. We're running mini buses over a longer space in terms of kilometers, and it is inappropriate as a mode of transport. And that is why it has as many accidents as it has, because it is inappropriate for it to be traveling those long distances. It's supposed to be a feeder and distribution service for the bigger network in itself. And then what are we doing? We're trying to build BRTs across cities. Whoever ever came up with that idea? So let me ask you a simple thing. Well, don't answer that question. Maybe I was involved a few years back. So all of you have been to, what is that city in South America? Bogota. I've never been there, but here's the challenge with it. What is 12 buses, one after the other, at a headway of 30 seconds? It's actually a train. Yep, can tell you that. It's actually a train. 12 buses, 30 seconds apart. That's a train. And it doesn't even carry as many people as a metro. So that in itself does not make sense. But I'm saying in the entire network, there's a transport mix that functions, and let's make it work. Anyway, the reason why that other map is built like that is to enable this. We intentionally are building the extensions on the Gauteng so that it can long-term wise enable our high-speed aspirations, so that we don't go and build over each other. The high-speed network will come into the Gauteng network, and then it will enable it. I hope with all those words, I have given you a thought to ponder for the day, but still, I still say to you, get PRASA to work. There's no other way of getting this right. You can only move more people. You can see in the number of passengers you can carry all around, right down. So on the one side is the number of passengers you can carry an hour. And then on the other end, it also covers a wider range. And literally, our province as Gauteng, from one end to another, or most provinces or metropolitan areas, they're actually the furthest distance you have is 90 kilometers. And therefore, it is the most appropriate methodology of moving people than any other one. With those few words and with a few thoughts to ponder, and maybe I kept you running after a heavy breakfast, thank you. Taking questions.
Thank you so much, Tshepo. I've not seen anybody manage to use their 15 minutes so effectively. He's crammed everything in there. The closest person to sort of managing to get all that detail in before, with charts and everything is perhaps a villain in a James Bond movie. They tell you everything they're going to do before they do it. It's like, as you can see, this is my plan, Mr. Bond. But the thing is, he's dressed like Bond, so we have to trust him. We know what he's doing. Thank you so much again, Tshepo. Please, another round of applause for him. And let it be known, I'm not calling the Gauteng Management Agency Bond villains. I'm just simply stating that the man has definitely got away with words. We're going to get into our sessions now. And one of the things that we love doing is giving our session chairs a warm welcome to the stage. This first particular session has to do with something they're calling the finger problem, which is basically the human factor management issue. And to moderate and to chair this specific panel, we have Sethunya Matsi. Please welcome her to the stage. She is an experienced ergonomist with a demonstrated history of working in the railway, construction, and mining industries. And much like most other really excellent people in the world, she's a Rhodes University graduate. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Sethunya.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cyrus. Was speaking, I could hear if you were a little bit too close, then the b was a bit emphasized. I think that's okay. I didn't break it. Okay. Honorable guests, ladies, gentlemen, good morning. As I've already been introduced, I'll be here to chair the finger problem session, which is the session. So in simple terms, when we're speaking about this finger problem, we are referring to the tendency to shift the blame or to try to maintain some level of plausible deniability whenever things go wrong. And the reason why this can be so problematic is because of the industry that we're in. Rail is a complex socio-technical system. So what that means is that we can't get away from the complexity that is inherent in the structure, in the operations, in the maintenance, and other aspects of the railway system. We also can't deny that that same system is a whole that consists of parts, and that each of these parts can affect the behavior and can also affect other properties of that same system. So with that in mind, we have to contend with the fact that each part of the system is dependent on other parts, and that often these parts are interrelated. If we think back to the presentation from Mr. van der Merwe yesterday, when he was highlighting the impact of theft and vandalism, if we look at it from systems thinking, we see that that theft and vandalism, say they've stolen signaling cables or telecommunications cables or electric components, which is what they tend to steal. That's what we saw during the lockdown period. We saw unprecedented levels of theft and vandalism in those areas. So when we look at that, the impact won't just be on the affected department. So it won't just be the signaling department or the telecommunications department that is affected. What will usually happens that that department has to then divert resources in order to get the components that were damaged back online, whether it's getting more staff, stopping the maintenance that they had planned in order to deal with that problem. But the resultant effect often goes to train operations. So you can find it leading to manual authorizations or abnormal working or a breakdown in the communications. And now train drivers and TCOs have to communicate using cell phones. And what then tends to happen is that there will be train cancellations and train delays, which can then affect passengers who are waiting at the station as they're waiting longer and longer for these trains to come, and it can lead to issues of overcrowding. And the point is to show how interconnected this system is. And if you think of an example that's maybe closer, that's a bit more specific. When I was an inspector, we do investigations and say there's been a collision. We'd get there and the operator would tell us the cause of this collision was human error. The TCO allowed 2 trains into the same line. And we'd be like, okay, but we then want to probe further. We want to understand what happened. And we ask for the necessary evidence. And we find that that TCO was 9 hours into a 12-hour shift. And he had been working 7 consecutive days before that day. So he's in day 8 of working consecutively, 1. And we ask, oh, why is that the case? Why is he working so long without a rest break? And we get told, no, it's because we have vacancy issues. We have vacancy issues, so we're having to work with essentially a skeleton staff. Then we ask, okay, why was there no supervisor? And they're like, oh no, there was a supervisor, the coordinator, but because of the staffing issues, he's really overwhelmed and he was busy with other tasks. And we inquire further. And as we inquire, we hear all these different things. Oh no, because of theft and vandalism, it was abnormal working. So he was manually authorizing trains. And all of these things represent safety failures that occurred in the system. And that the TCO should not have been the last line of defense. So instead of looking at it and saying the root cause of that incident was human error, we need to be able to look at the actual system and look at that human error as it's inevitable. Human error is inevitable. Humans are fallible. So the important thing to do then is to design the system with human error in mind to make sure that the system is robust enough to withstand that. So you then look at the human error as indicators of existing gaps. The same way with the issues that happen when there's been theft and vandalism. You need to look at it as indicators of existing gaps that you have to fill with, create more safety defenses, create more safety guards, and make sure that your safety system is more robust. Anyway, I'm just going on a bit there, but I just wanted to give you an indication of why it's so important that we engage in continual learning, even when we have a reason to feel victimized, even when we're seeing the impact of the socioeconomic state of the country. It's so important that we continually learn from the issues that we're experiencing so that we design better and more robust systems. And like the great poet Michael Joseph Jackson says, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And I encourage all of us to look at ourselves, to start with ourselves and see what we can change to make the system more robust. And with that, let me introduce the people who will be actually speaking today. The two speakers today will be Dr. Natalie Skeppers and Ms. Nondumiso Shanke. I'm going to briefly read Dr. Skeppers' bio. She's a seasoned governance, risk, and compliance specialist, and she's also a consultant. She has a wide range of industry experience that stretches across the public and private sector, and she has over 20 years of experience. She also holds a PhD in engineering management from the University of Johannesburg. She has an MSc in health and safety and MPhil in HIV/AIDS management. She's held various senior and executive positions over the last decade. I'd like to please give a warm welcome to Dr. Skeppers.
What can I say? Yeah, I thought I'd bring some energy here. You're looking so dull and boring. Sorry about the voice. I was at that networking last night. So we're going, yay. So where are the CEOs this morning? They ran away because they heard I'm going to speak to them. Where's Tepo? Tepo's not here. Okay, and I suppose the others are negotiating with the strikes. Okay, let's have the board here. Thank you so much for inviting me back. I'm sorry that I sound so bad, but I promise to make it worth your while. I know talking about the railways can be very, very dry, boring, sad. And I've told them I'm taking Tepo's 5 minutes because he only spoke for 15 minutes. So I need that 5 minutes, right? So I'm negotiating now. Thank you to the RSR and the management, the board, everybody, all protocols observed, all the colleagues that I've worked with. It's so nice to see you guys. I'm always excited to come back and meet up with you. I think I've worked with almost everybody in the room, from senior management to the last person. So where's the clicker here? Here we go. There's my presentation. I like to talk about things that I experience in the workplace when I'm doing audits, when I'm doing investigations. Hello, Kevin. And yesterday we heard that a lot of the valuable lessons we learn here, we need to take them and take them back to the workplace. So a lot of our experience, I hope that when you leave here, it makes you a better person and you go back to the workplace and you go and implement. Unfortunately, a lot of the people here are not the policymakers, but the operational staff, I believe you can also make a difference. So I must just decide now, is it back or forth? You know which one you click here. PhD here, don't help nothing here. The green one,
Yeah.
that one, didn't work.
Yeah, because we're pressing this one. Yeah.
Okay, so then the red one is back. So I want us focus. No, don't go. Just stay a little bit. Where's Andre? Just in case I don't get it right. And I want to tell Andre, I still buy green bananas. I'm still very young. I'm not going to expose my age. We talked about green bananas. And in my community, we cook with green bananas. I don't know if you're from Durban or you know how we cook with bananas, right? So green bananas are sharp. So, you know, human factors, there's an element within the element within the element in the Rail Regulators Act, right? And the SANS regulations. It's got a very specific element that talks about recruitment, selection, and placement. And We skirt over these issues like Sma mentioned yesterday. We just want to comply, we want to tick the boxes, and we want to appease the regulator, who sometimes also wants to appease their big bosses called the Department of Transport, that just wants to hand out permits. So that is also a very unhealthy relationship. I hope one day it's going to be unpacked. We've asked many times that the regulator must move somewhere else. You can't have a father and a child in the same sort of thing. We know, I used to be a board member. You get bullied. Right, so the point is with recruitment, selection and placement, you got to have the right staff. Now, some of you, or some of us, move. Unfortunately, have been placed in positions, right? You've trained for it the whole 30, 40, 50, 73 years, right? And now you get the job. It's great because we know you got the training. We know you're going to manage, you're going to be competent, you've inherited the job. Yeah, but this is the railways. You're not a royal and you're not entitled. So we need better people in that space. We need to also understand when we recruit, when we select, my friend, you don't need to take pictures. The slides are for free. You can have them. Okay? I've made them. You can have them. So we've spoken a lot about the legislation, and I'm not going to go down that route. You know, there's the OSH Act, there's the regulations, there's many pieces of code, standards, incorporated standards that you got to comply with, and you got to tick the boxes. So that is a course on its own, right? But the human part of it, it's a very unpredictable part of our lives. So you must understand the organization's role is to create policies. When they create policies, those policies must be further delineated to regulations, guidance, procedures. And I tell you, working in the railway space, I could never understand, okay, now why do we need to go to the regulator? Because the speed is changing from 100 to 40. You know, there's so many rules. By the time you get to 40, the speed is increased again. And Tsepo's talking about going back through communities, and there's so many rules. I remember when the Gauteng was built, and we had to test the lines with sandbags. That's not written somewhere. That knowledge is lost. We just knew, pack the trains as though there are people in and let the sandbags. You know what I'm talking about? Drive up and down, up and down. Those things are not written somewhere. I can bet you now it's not in anybody's written instruction. But people leave organizations and then you got to rework, you start again, and you've lost all that knowledge. I looked around this room and I looked at all the speakers. There's awesome people in this room. From Jaap that I've worked with, from Temba, all the people in this room, Jackie, but we run to other places. How many times have you been outside of the country to go and get knowledge? If I must get another delegation to Singapore, I'm going to puke. I work with a few entities. Every time they want to do something, let's go and see Singapore. I've been to Singapore, I think 7 times now. And if somebody must ask me again to go do a study in Singapore, I'm going to stab them. Then I'm going to be my real self. Yeah. Okay. Stekom, baby, stekom. Yeah. I say, oh, no. Let's get this right. I'm not from Cape Town, please. I'm not from Cape Town. I'm from Boksburg. You see, I'm from Boksburg. I'm very proud of my heritage, but I'm from Boksburg. So what's the purpose of having company policies? You all know why. A company policy is a statement of intent. It's to govern, it's to rule, to set standards, to create unity, formity, and to basically get people to toe in line so that tomorrow you don't make your own rules, which we do in the rail space. People make their own rules, even up until today, as they're going along. I was working very closely with the Department of Labor when COVID started, and we were writing codes and standards, and I questioned them. I said, this is not a klom nonsense. And there, why we're not wearing masks, right? But we have to do a lot of things because the World Health Organization said, do or you don't get. And you know what I'm talking about, right? So policies should encourage, it should give direction, but it shouldn't muzzle you. It shouldn't hamper your growth. It shouldn't let you not think out of the box. And so many times we are allowing people not to come up with creativity, because if they also come up with creative issues, we have a Vodacom situation where the guy's still battling and fighting with Vodacom 20 years later, can't they just pay the damn guy and get it over with, right? So people are going to sit on their creativity table. If they want ideas how to come up with solutions, they're not going to come to you. They're going to want something in writing and say, well, I work there and this has got nothing to do with my job, so compensate me, right? We sit with a lot of outdated policies. I'm going to preach this until you get dick of me. Go back and stop talking about things that happened in 1920 when Jan van Riebeck still came to the Cape. No, 1642. Yeah, 52. Thank you, Meneer. I was just checking if you're listening. Yeah. Yeah. So the thing is, policies, if they're outdated, they do nothing for nobody. They don't help the organization grow. They don't do anything. They just help you get your permit and you get on the train and there you go. How many times must we still hear about people stealing cables, selling cables? We've been talking for 10 years since I've worked in rail space that we must do something about the cables being taken out of the country. I know now we're talking about maybe becoming a crime. What is this other word they use? Where you do something against the state and then they, whatever, I'll get to it later. But it must become a criminal offense that a state, what is the word? There we, not sabotage. Treason, there we go. You must go to jail and they must expedite you somewhere. But when we had the situation with COVID, right, we understand that a lot of things changed as we went along, as we were doing things. And 80% of the knowledge workers, us kind of people, knowledge workers, were working from home. But yet the rules didn't speak to that. And I'll give some examples. There's someone in this room, I did work for their company. I actually helped them design a checklist, a risk assessment for their workplace. And no other company went to the workplace to check. Is this person sitting on a box? Is this working under a roof that's leaking? People just said, go and work from home. They didn't even care if you had a home. They just said, I work from home. And then some of us were lucky because when I said to my helper, you must go and work from home, she said, no, I'm not going. I've got the room. So what kind of abuse was taking place? So when I needed her, she would have to come to work, same like you. You had to work funny hours because now you can overstep your mark, right? So policies are there for business strategy. They're there to communicate values. Let me step on this one. I've trained Transnet freight people. You might be in the work. And in all my training sessions, I'm going to say this without shame. I asked them, what are your company values? How many of you know your company values? All of them, 7, all 8. And you know how many of them could respond? Very, very few, maybe 1%. So what's the point of telling people you must have company values when they don't know the company values, when they can't repeat it, when they can't sleep it, when they can't eat it? You don't drum it into them. And if you do drum it into them, then the person that is in seniority goes against the grain. So where I stand, I'm like, if you're not going to have proper company values, you're not going to follow them, get rid of them. You're wasting people's time. Because they're not interested, you're not interested, so let's just call it quits. Go and test yourself. If you know your company values, great for you. But I can tell you, I've done that training for 6 years, yeah, on the program that we were on. And every time I stood in front of the class, I asked them, what are your company values? They can't repeat them. You can't do anything about it, but here we are. Okay, to document and implement best practices, to go and see what's happening in Singapore, bring back the information and do nothing with it. I've been on many company guided tours. Recently, I went to South Korea, the South, and we went to, what is the other country's name? Australia and whatever other entity. We brought the information back. And one was on specific modular housing. And the particular minister said, oh no, that won't work. And I said, why not? No, our people don't want to live in a high-rise building. Remember, we did the study. We went, it's been done in South Africa. We looked again, we came back with information. Why won't it work? No, because our people won't want to carry their coffins to the 11th floor. Did you speak to anybody? So you're saying to me people will be happy living in shacks than live in a high-rise building? They make up things as they go along. It's like they don't want to help people. They don't want to service our people. They don't want to improve their lives. It's the same situation where we come up with excuses why PRASA can't work. It can work. Well, and I've offered my help, but they haven't come back to me. So anyway, so let's unpack policy influence. And I don't want to go through everything. We spoke yesterday, and Jacques mentioned pestel. You have to agree. We live in a political, economical situation, and technology is now each situation, and the environment has to change. But most of all, it's leadership. And you are all leaders. Stop looking to number one to say that he's the leader, she's the leader. Why can't you be the leader in your space? The leader where you're at. We know that you can do certain things, right? And you can achieve certain things. We need leaders. We need you to step up to the plate. I'm so tired of South Africans complaining about everything. They even complain about the 350 that they're getting, and they're not supposed to get it. Huh? And I don't have a British passport, so I'm not going anywhere, right? So I'm staying here. And if I'm going to help fix this country, we expect the same from you. People sitting here, coming to work, just earning their paychecks. It's wrong, guys. And you're the leadership. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come here. Your companies have paid for you to sit here, looking at me, looking so pretty. Thank you. So there's a lot of policies that must change, can change, should change, will change. For example, weapons. I know for a fact, I ordered some of your sites. People carrying firearms. Maybe I also carry a firearm. But when you get to the gate, the poor security says, you're not allowed to. The only thing is a sign. You can't bring it. So now what must I do with my firearm? There's no place for me to dislodge the cartridge. I can't take out the thing. Yeah, I do carry a firearm. Harassment policies. Bring your own device. This is very interesting. So you expect your staff to answer their personal phones, and it's not your device. I've had it the other day. Somebody told me, this is my phone. Don't you phone me on my phone. If you want to phone me, a staff member, I'm a chairperson, somebody, and they're telling me where to get off. And if you know me, I'm not that kind of girl. You must heard now, I carry a knife and maybe a firearm. So the person was honest, said, listen, I'm not going to give you my number. This is not your device. If you want me to answer phones, you must supply me phone with data, with whatever. Was the person right? But we don't like it, isn't it? You want to ask people there, and then you send them a WhatsApp. You expect them to answer WhatsApp. WhatsApp is not communication, please. It's not a communication. So bring your own device is a policy that you must look at. Alcohol and drug testing. I know you'll test for alcohol till whenever, but none of us here was testers for drugs. And I know for a fact there's a lot of senior executives, because I work in the space, that sniff cocaine. They do. Why are you shocked? They smoke dacha. Dacha is a drug, unless it's for medicinal purposes. They smoke dacha. They're not shy. Okay, in lone worker policy, I've spoken about this on another platform. Remote working policies. All our people work remotely. We let women, because we're in the space now, they work alone, and there's no worker policies to cover them, to make sure. You know the situation with Eskom, where the lady was killed while working in the substation. I've mentioned this many, many times. Nothing has happened in that space. Social media policies. The only time you want to come after staff is when you've seen them make a nasty tweet about you. But you don't have policies in place that says, don't mention us, don't talk about us, especially if you're wearing a PRASA thing or whatever. Like that policeman that was caught dancing wherever, and now he has to face the music, right? Okay, I'm going to move on. I've spoken about marijuana before, for medicinal use only, but now it's like free for everybody. People are coming to work under the influence, and unfortunately, the regulations have not been cleared as to whether a person that's using the marijuana, if they're incompetent, under the influence. So they're still working out those regulations, but we need to participate in these forums because it's going to affect your operations. And I know for a fact the trained people like smoking. So fit for job. Why don't we make sure that people work for us are fit for job? I'm going to tell you something, and if you look at me funny, it's fine. I once challenged the policeman. I said, sir, don't give me a ticket. If I outrun you from here to there, then don't give me a ticket. Sy maag was net so groot. Mkaba was here. He had no chance. I said, let's make a deal. I said, let me make it even sweeter. If you win, I'll buy you a barrel of Kentucky. But if I win, you go back and you scrap all my tickets. Who do you think won that race? There's no ways a policeman is going to catch me. Okay, I don't look like a Barbie doll, but I've got something in me, right? So when we hire pilots, you can go look at it. That's why those pilots in Kenya fell asleep. Fatigue management, you spoke about people that fall asleep on the job because of fatigue. So when they hire pilots, a pilot cannot even have drugs and alcohol in his system. They do a gamma GT test, and if he's got any traces, so 6 months before he's due for his medical, they stop drinking, smoking, jolling, anything. You know, most say the second highest divorce people in the profession. They do drug tests, they do psychological assessments because they can't have psychosis, they can't have angina. Their hearts, they mustn't have cholesterol, they mustn't have myocardial infarctions and diabetes requiring medication. But yet we run critical cargo and we don't tell our people that if you're not fit for the job, not a job description, go that side and get yourself fit. We even give them junk food when they're off duty. We package it for them. Here's the junk food, go and eat it. Okay, so I just want to add something else. Companies are now moving towards doing different kind of recruitment. Polygraphs, because people lie. Instead of going through all those hoops, they someone make you do a polygraph and they say, are you happy to do this? We know we don't want chronic liars and people that depends on the level of your job because we can see what's happening in the country. And then they also have criminologists in interviews. I was in the interview the other day and I was wondering, who's that person sitting there? And the company didn't say because I was part of a panel. And it was a criminologist. And the other thing is a graphology where they make you write things and they check whether you are also that honest person. Because those assessments that we do, you never hear from them. It's apparently for developmental purposes. And when you go for developmental purposes, there's no money. So what's the point of wasting money on psychometric testing? If you want the right candidate, then you must get the right candidate. Okay, if you want to be extreme, there's also a term called blind hiring. You know what this is, né? The voice. They sit that way and the person sings behind them and they choose who they want to work with. But I think we will never get there in this country because some of these jobs are still placements, right? They just take you from wherever and they give you the job, which is fine if you've been training for it. But blind hiring is also becoming an issue because we need the right people in the right jobs, right? So if your job is not listed here on this list, I think you need to worry because these are the jobs of the future. Director of Wellbeing, Employment Enablement Coach, Head of Business Behavior. Somewhere there's safety there, distraction prevention coach, and so forth, Chief Purpose Planner, Climate Change Response Leader, Future of Work Leader, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. These jobs is what is coming in the next 10 years. And if we're not geared up for it, all of us are going to be redundant. Well, luckily you're working for Transnet. Let's hope the strike goes well. She's telling me I must go. Okay, maybe just a few more comments. Please, if people are working from home, do an assessment. There's a lot of people that are depressed. A lot of your workers, you don't know what the hell some women are going through, being now in the same space with their partners, their kids, aunties, grandma, everybody's moved in because it's about resources. People are not what they're telling you. So you're sitting here and it's a true reflection with the shirt and the pajamas at the bottom. It's an exact replication of what's going on in your space. I don't do that because I'm going to forget and I'm going to get up and then people are going to see my bottoms. So I'd rather get there prepared. I've got extra 5 minutes. Question. The definition of workplace, has it changed? When you are working at home and the ceiling falls on you, who's liable now? Who's liable? I had a discussion with Tibo Zana from Department of Labor, and he said, well, unless your policy has changed and unless your direction and your letter has said, you now work from home. Okay, what about your insurance? What about if the equipment burns out? Who's going to replace that? They don't send you toilet paper. They don't send you nothing. I used to enjoy going to the office. At least you had free lunch. Now they don't even send you Uber Eats. Okay, so let's move on. Just a quick example, what the train driver must do. He must inspect the train, he must check the goods, communicate, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. Yet, the position requires bending, stooping, stretching, crawling, climbing, walking, running, sitting. Yeah, all of that. But do we do that when they go for tests? No, we just do the medicals, the basic medicals, right? When they join, they look like the guy in the first. And this is not being disrespectful. We need to help our guys. We need to help our women, our people to say that how can we as an employer become more socially involved in the things that we are doing? Because you got to, it's like financial counseling is becoming a requirement. Because if there's no financial requirement, counseling, people are going to start taking things, you know? Okay, let me move on. So when leaders and managers and supervisors do what they do, and change safety standards, they create problems in the organization, us, okay? We need to make sure that we look after the people and after the processes and the policies that we've been given, right? Engaging employees, involving them, and explaining things. Not all of us grew up speaking English, Kevin. My moedertaal is Afrikaans, if you didn't know it. I know I got the Sandton accent, right? Right? What we don't want is this kind of behavior. People disengage. They call it quiet quitting. They said, I'm not going to do it. I wasn't asked to remove a tree, right? So you want them to solve problems. Think about how can they remove that stumbling block in your organization. Not like Donald Trump. You walk past a myriad of people, and that's what they'll do to you, Tepo. You'll have that tissue on your shoe, and if you're not a good leader, they'll let you walk with it up until you get in the plane, and you're the captain of the ship. Yeah, Mara, leave him. Let him just walk with that tissue. You know, you don't want this kind of leadership, okay? So I'll end with this. You can read the rest of the information. I do a lot of audits, and we fix things. People fix things before the audit, and then they just fix that part because we have to share the scope. Yeah, we have to share the scope with the employer, and then as soon as we leave, back to normal. Right? Okay, let me leave it at that. I'm not going to say much. I think you get the gist of my presentation because I don't want to get ousted, and you have to vote for me. Thank you. Okay, I'm done. Are you? Right? I don't know. Okay.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I think we're wide awake now. Thank you so much. Whatever tiredness we felt before, it's all gone. Thank you. So the next presentation is going to be from Ms. Nondumiso Shange. She's a professional registered engineering technologist, electrical, with a diverse skill set in railway telecommunications and the signaling space. She's currently working as a telecom specialist in the Research and Technical Skills Development Department for the RSR. She's part of the team that conducts permits, permit assessments, technical training, research, technology reviews. She started her career as an engineering technician at Transnet, and she was in the signaling department. She was appointed as a chief engineering technician, and it's her efforts in that position that landed her the job at RSR. So please put your hands together for Nondumiso.
Good morning, distinguished guests, delegates, and all protocols are observed. My presentation will be on the human behavior aspect, on level crossing technologies that are being implemented, how human beings behave when there's protection levels that are being implemented in this level crossing. So, level crossing safety is an outcome of interaction between social and technical components. social being the communities around the level crossing space, and people or road users that are traversing through the level crossing system. And the technical component will be the level crossings, the infrastructure, and the technologies that are being implemented there. We have to identify that level crossings are a complex socio-technical system where there's a need for shared responsibilities between railway operators, road authorities, road users, and town planners, as well as the railway safety regulator. I mentioned town planners because we see a lot of communities that are mushrooming around the railway reserves, where operators are then, rail operators are then put under pressure to make sure that there's protection for those level crossings. And therein lies the complexity in designing the level crossing protection technologies that should align with the human behavior. Humans are always adapting, changing, even though there's an installation of booms or traffic lights to warn them that there's a train that is supposed to come through. People are always there trying to cross faster on the level crossing, trying to beat the train, and then that's where level crossing incidents occur. We conducted 2 research projects where we analyzed, which focused on the analyzing of level crossing incidents and possible solutions to improve safety, as well as the investigation of level crossing technologies and its application in South Africa. So through the data that we collected through these research papers, I will then give a representation of occurrences that took place over a period of 10 years, root causes that were identified from the investigation reports that we sourced from TFR, PRISA, as well as the railway safety regulator, and then the physical assessment as well as the risk assessment conducted by rail operators. These physical assessments are supposed to be conducted every 5 years, where operators need to identify. They're not supposed to be done by only rail operators, but it should be done jointly with road authorities, rail operators that share the same line, as well as other stakeholders that are involved to ensure that the level of protection that is implemented in this level crossing is according to the requirements of the level crossing. So the next slide is just a representation of the occurrence data that was collected between 2009 and 2019 of level crossing incidents, where it was grouped per injuries and fatalities that were taking place in those provinces. As you can see that in 2017, 2018, there was a huge increase in the number of level crossing injuries that took place due to a level crossing accident that happened in Geneva in Free State, where a PRISA train collided with a truck. The PRISA train consisted of 13 coaches, where 8 of those coaches derailed and 5 of them caught fire. So that led to the high number of injuries that took place in that level crossing incidents. And it shows the impact of what damage or impact it has when there's a level crossing incident. People end up being injured and people die sometimes. The next slide just shows an overview of the data that was analyzed through the investigation report so that we can find out the root cause for these incidents. So the first slide is just the immediate causes. Based on the number of level investigation reports, which were 37 that were analyzed, we saw that 92% of the findings in those investigation reports identified road drivers as the people who caused the level crossing because they did not obey the level crossing signages. And the other 3% is when a driver attempted to cross over to overtake a stationary vehicle in the level crossing, and where the visibility was low. And one of the reports just indicated that there was no immediate cause for the level crossing incident. And then the root cause that was found in those 37 investigation reports was that 51%, which is related to the immediate causes that were identified as road drivers are the ones who are causing these incidents, where they do not adhere to the road signages. And then the lack of an inadequate enforcement of traffic policing. If there will be traffic cops, maybe in the high risk level crossings every time, maybe that could reduce the number of level crossing incidents because people will then adhere to the road signages. And then the substandard vehicle maintenance of vehicles that are transversing in those level crossing, like this one where the brakes failed, the person could not stop in that level crossing, and then there was an incident. And then with the introduction of the booms in level crossing, if there is no fallback, or maybe putting two half booms on the level crossing, it created a problem because as I had indicated earlier on, human beings always find a way to just dodge the rules. So in this case, I think the driver just wanted to move past the booms that were already lowest because it was single booms. So they were caught inside the level crossing, and that's when the level crossing incident happened. And then just 27%, obviously, this is where we need to put more focus on finding the root causes for these incidents. Okay, through the analysis of the physical assessments and risk assessment. So risk assessment and physical assessment of level crossings are conducted every 5 years, where an operator will then determine if the level of protection in that area is still applicable, or do they need to increase the level of protection. By increasing the level of protection, maybe first it will be just a stop sign indicating that indicating to drivers that you should stop at this level crossing. When you increase the level of protection, it means that you introduce your traffic lights or you introduce your boom gates, which then give visual and warnings to the driver, even sirens, so that drivers are aware that there's a train that is about to transverse in that area. So through those physical assessment and risk assessment that we conducted, this high-risk level crossing, the top 10 list of level crossings that had the highest level crossing incidents between the year 2016 and 2021 are from Transnet. So through this indication, we see that the level crossing in Witbank had about 23 incidents, and the only level of protection that is implemented there is just a road sign. And this shows that there's a link with the level of protection as well as the number of incidents that occur. So with just a road sign implemented in that level crossing, there's not much warning that is given to the road drivers or road users, vehicle drivers, as a warning that there's a train that is approaching. So the decision making in determining if the speed that the train is traveling at or the distance that the train is in lies with the motorist, where they decide, I'll be able to speed and go over the level crossing before the train approaches, which is not the truth, because they assume that the train is slower than they think. That's where most of these occurrences happen, because of the assumption or decision making that human beings are making. So that's why we have to increase the number of the level of protection, so that we limit the decision making for the driver to decide if it's safe or not for them to transverse on that level crossing. So through the analysis of the physical assessment as well as the risk assessment, we saw that the provinces with the highest number of level crossing occurrences are the Northwest, KwaZulu-Natal, and Mpumalanga, as indicated in that table. And then through those top 10 level crossing, we saw that 7 of them are actively protected and 3 of them are passively protected. By actively protected, I mean those level crossings where warnings are given to the vehicle or motorist. That will be your flashing lights, that your sirens as well as booms that close to indicate that there's a train that is coming. And then passively protected is when you only have a stop sign in that level crossing, just indicating that there's a level crossing there, and the decision then lies with the motorist to decide if they can cross or not when they see the train. This is a picture of a level crossing in Witwerk, which had the highest number of level crossing incidents. As you can see that the traffic there is a bit high, and the only level of protection that is implemented there is just a stop sign and an indication that there's a level crossing. So there's a need for the operator to increase the level of protection to ensure that there's a protection for motorists not to be involved in level crossing incidents. As I've already indicated previously, regarding the road signs without barriers, where you're supposed to prevent motorists to transverse on the level crossing when it's not safe. And this is an indication as well, as we saw in the Witbank level crossing, that less protection levels in the level crossing, there's a higher number of occurrences that take place. We also have on the high-risk level crossing where we've piloted a number of technologies. Like this one, it has traffic lights, boom gates, as well as blockers that come up when the train is about to approach. So there's a confirmation that there's no vehicle in the middle of the level crossing vicinity before the train is authorized to come through. So the train driver will see we'll see lights that will flash indicating that the train, the section is clear, and then they can progress. But there have been some challenges regarding this level crossing because it requires a lot of maintenance, the location as well. And this is where there was a lot of shunting. So the protection level didn't work properly because there had to be manned flagments to protect the level crossing while shunting, and the maintenance the maintenance skill and the availability of spares was not available. So this level crossing protection level was then decommissioned. I'll then play a clip of an Irish rail where most of the protection levels have been implemented. We just have to have a look at what happens regarding the human behaviors in those level crossing. Could you please play the video?